Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's 5-minute no spoiler review will be D-Day by Stephen Ambrose. This book was originally published on June 6th, 1994 for the 50th anniversary of D-Day. The book covers the commanders on both sides of the World War II Western Front, starting with the week before the D-Day campaign launched, all the way through a good period of time after the landing on D-Day. I'm going to hit on the theme of the book, what I think about it, and then some strengths and criticisms, we'll call it. And I'll give it an overall thumbs up, thumbs down. I researched a little bit besides reading the book. So Ambrose apparently interviewed around 1,400 veterans after the war before he wrote the book. So what do you get from all of that is a narrative of folks on the ground in the war, stories that you wouldn't hear about in history books, and an ordinary citizen soldiers, as he would call it, perspective of what was going on and what they were going through. Another thing that comes out of this book and other books on D-Day was just that the plans for the invasion completely went a different direction once the troops hit the beach and eventually got inland via the hedgerows that weren't expected and weren't planned for, and how they adapted to all that. I really enjoyed, there's sections of the book that are gripping. Even if you know the history of D-Day, it just builds up in terms of what's going to happen next. And you feel like you're right there with the soldiers and you feel for them, and you really can't put it down in some parts of the book. And I also like that from a history perspective, you don't feel like you're reading a boring history book. All right, I took some note here, so my delivery might be a little bit reading a few things, but I wanted to go into strengths and I'll call them criticisms of the book. As I said earlier, the use of oral history in this writing style is really powerful. It's also makes history easier to consume. It also relayed a sense of suspense at times, because those stories are not something that you might actually have seen before. And then the other thing is it covers everything from a high level, what the generals were thinking, how they were planning for engagement to the other side, but it does it in a way that's not overly complex. And the criticisms, did a little research on things that had occurred after Ambrose had passed away. There's noted plagiarism of different passages in the books. Now, I don't know exactly which areas this covers, but I just know that after he died, some of the historians came out about passages that he had utilized without reference to other writers. So that's definitely not a good thing. And along with that, they also disputed some of the accuracy of his writing. That's something you might want to check on, some of those facts in there. And then this one, like Undaunted Courage, I mentioned there's just a little bit of this halo effect, this hero worshiping that occurs when reading Ambrose's stuff. I would call it a elevated patriotism and bias toward the American troops. If you don't like that, then I would say maybe you want to read some other authors on this topic. Like I said before, this was published on the 50th anniversary of D-Day. And that also spawned some things specifically that Ambrose did in relation to D-Day itself. Ambrose co-founded the Eisenhower Center for American Studies at the University of New Orleans. He conducted 1,400 interviews, as I mentioned before, and utilized this material for numerous books, including Band of Brothers. This covers the story the movie Saving Private Ryan was based on. That story, while it's true, there were originally 4 brothers and 3 that were killed, and 1 was pulled. He does get criticism from others in terms of the facts around how that story unfolded. That came from this research as well. And the other thing is the Eisenhower Center and all of the work that Ambrose did on this research also led to creation of a museum. Ambrose was part of building that museum to honor D-Day landing. And it's now the National World War II Museum. The reason why he chose New Orleans because Andrew Higgins, the original developer of the Higgins boats, were crucial for the amphibious landings. That's where he was from. Just to wrap up, I really enjoyed this book. I rate it pretty high. This is a great book, in my opinion. So until next time, Thanks for watching. Keep reading. Take care.